Hello and welcome to the show. With me today is Roger Barcham, the chairman of SBL. Hello Roger, welcome to the show.
Craig, thanks for asking me along.
Roger, aside from being the chairman of SBL, what is it you do in your day job?
Well, I'm a commercial photographer and I have a studio in Ipswich, and we photograph things that other people want to sell, basically. Manufacturing companies come to us, people like locally Ransoms and Crane Fluid Systems.
Would you say you're more commercially biased as opposed to sort of wedding photography, or would you do a bit of both? Or
No, we're commercially biased. I haven't the courage to do weddings. It's far too stressful for that.
Okay. How long have you been doing this? Is it something sort of fairly recent? Have you had your business a long time?
I've had my business since 1986, but I've been doing photography since the mid-60s when I was about 14.
All right.
And I started off selling pictures on the Beccles and Bungay Journal as a Saturday job, local football stuff.
Okay, right. And you must have some very interesting stories to tell on that. But just coming back to your current role as well as chairman of SBL, can you tell me what SBL is? What's SBL about?
SBL was started 25 years ago by small businessmen and as a kind of support group for small businesses, whereby they may not have the resources to information and help that larger companies have. So therefore they can go and gain experience from other people who've had smaller businesses longer and ask a question. Oh, this went wrong for me, how did you figure it out? And they will give them that support back. We also hold various network meetings and other things so that people can try and sort of build a business from it as well.
So as I stand it, SBL essentially is shortened version of Ipswich and Suffolk Small Business Association.
That's correct.
Are bigger businesses excluded, or is it open to essentially anyone within the locality?
They're not excluded, but we do tailor everything we do to the small business. I mean, larger businesses can come in, and obviously the support they can offer to other small businesses can be great. But everything we do, we tailor to fit the pocket, as it were, of a small business.
So it's kind of a mutually sort of beneficial, you have the networking events, almost like a social calendar of networking events. The idea, as I originally remember, it was kind of as you say, a mutually beneficial group to enable smaller businesses without as much experience to learn from others as they go and kind of, form a support group essentially, but as well as the idea of trying to trade and getting new business from one another.
Yeah, that's quite right. That's more or less exactly what it is. And we have new businesses joining every year. We recently held an event which was a training exercise for new exhibitors at our annual exhibition.
Okay.
And they gained great information from that, and we've had good feedback.
I suppose really the next question, because you do the sort of big business exhibition in the local area. What's that? How does that work?
Well, we've been running the exhibition for 10 to 12 years, started off really small, and now we have over 100 stands at Trinity Park at the Suffolk Showground. The stands are now all sold.
Okay,
we have a waiting list for that. But it's like a massive network exercise. People put their stands and show their wares, and other people, because it's free to come in, anybody can come along, and we welcome everybody to come along and see the trade stands there. But it's also, again, an opportunity to network and meet other people.
Because I've been to it a few years. It's been at Trinity Park for a few years now, hasn't it, sort of thing?
Yeah, it has. It's a great venue. It's huge amounts of parking. It's probably the largest venue for an exhibition in the area anyway. And you haven't got to struggle through town to get there.
As an organisation, you must be very proud of the fact that you've sold out all the stands, especially against, as we keep hearing in the media, the grotty climate that we're all supposed to be in.
Well, exactly, and our theme this year is trading Suffolk through a recession, or helping to trade Suffolk through a recession. So we're delighted that A, we sold all the stands, and B, that our sponsors and supporters continue to give us money and help and aid to promote it and to enable us to keep the cost of the stands down, so that small businesses can afford to do this.
I suppose that's one of the things. I mean, part of the role I have within my own business, I deal a lot with the conference and exhibitions industry, and some of the costs are huge to exhibit at some of these exhibitions. And from what I know of the Suffolk Business Exhibition, the costs are made with that small business in mind, really.
Well, they are. That's key to everything that SBL is about. I mean, for an example, just this morning I've had a client in. We produce exhibition systems ourselves. who are going to an exhibition. And the amount of equipment they wanted from me to cover their stand was going to come into the region of like £8,000. And again, I was explaining to her how much this stuff would all cost. She said it's peanuts compared to the floor space cost.
Yeah.
So our stands at, I don't know, from £95 upwards. At £95, that's, it's really cost effective.
Well, I mean, you get the other end of the scale, you get things like the Dubai World Trade Centre,
Exactly.
the NEC in England and stuff like that. But Trinity Park's a fantastic venue, and really, I suppose it's probably the showcase venue around here. So it's a nice place to have it. You've got the parking. It's very easy to get in and out of. Good travel route. So it's ideal. Yeah. In terms of sort of all the types of people, the types of businesses that would exhibit at the business exhibition, is it a case that it's a good mix, or does it tend to favour? Does this bar favour one industry, like finance or accounting, or is it just a mix of every industry?
No, the only common denominator is that they're all in business. The type of business is so varied; it's unbelievable. From florists to possibly a plumber, up to banks, finance industry. Exhibition people will exhibit there because what a showcase for them. Yeah. But no, there is no limit on the type of business whatsoever. With
the business exhibition itself, is there kind of any other events that go alongside it at all? You mentioned the kind of training event that's put on beforehand, but do you or would there be plans for like breakout training events in the future or currently, or is, I know in the past you did a kind of, almost politicians' question time sort of thing, which was very well received. Is there anything else planned at all for this year, do you think?
Well, we have Mentor joined us, and they have a whole area of the exhibition dedicated to new and start-up businesses, which is really good. And what great experience for them to as a second or first year in business, to get around an exhibition and see how other people do it, and perhaps get some trade for themselves. We are holding a question time again. We've got various people coming on there from the council, from a China-Britain Business Connection group, and from the new Anglia LEP, which a lot of people, I have to admit, I've asked a lot of our members and other businesses that have never heard of them, and they've kind of taken over from Business Link and various other things.
Okay, right.
So they're going to be there. We hold another event later in the year, which is reasonably similar, called Stir It and Stump It, which is where we choose a number of businesses, or they say they'd like to do it, and we pick from that, who showcase their own businesses in a 10-minute presentation to other members, and then we network from that as well.
Is it a case, do his bar have, one event a fortnight, one a month, one every quarter? How often does your sort of events calendar?
We have 11 events, I think, each year. A lot of them are networking. We're holding some morning events at the moment, which seem to be attracting a greater number of people, and they run from between 9:30 and 11:30, or somewhere in that area, depending on the venue, really. And one or two evening events. Some of the events are on the calendar annually, as such as Stir It and Stump It, and our AGM, which is coming up, which is another good opportunity for members to come along and actually influence how we do things, which I've just put in my newsletter, which is going out shortly, that they should come along, because without their feedback, we don't know if we're taking it in the correct direction.
The organisation can adapt to what its members want, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of these organisations, a lot of organisations really need to keep at the heart of what they do, is you're there purely to serve the membership.
Exactly.
And if they turn up and voice an opinion, then things can change. Obviously, you've been in business quite a while yourself, as you said. What sort of advice would you give to someone starting out in business now? There are people being made redundant around us and stuff, and kind of redundancy money. A lot of the time, people will use that to start a new company. Any sort of golden nuggets of advice you've picked up in the years?
Be lucky, but apart from that, just make sure you've got a market for what you're selling. Do some research before you pump that money into it. Be aware that the banks are, being difficult at the moment to give you money or give you any leeway with money. The first couple of 3 years in business is really difficult. You're probably going to spend more than you earn. So be sure that the people you have backing you are aware of that, and that they will back you. Be prepared to work for hours.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly. But just be dedicated. Be sure that the business you're going to set up has a market, rather than that you think it has a market.
Have you? I mean, what sort of changes have you seen since when your first 3 years is the golden time everyone talks about? It's your sink or swim moment in business.
Yeah.
How have you seen your business change from the first 3 years to today?
Phenomenal change. When I took the business on in 1986, we were using traditional cameras. We were using plate cameras. Even till 6 years ago, I was using a plate camera with the hood over your head that you might see in the Victorian day.
Yeah.
We were still using that, and a lot of people still do. But with the advent of the digital age, it's transformed the business into another beast entirely. I mean, it's still just as much fun. But sadly, I had to invest initially in large amounts of equipment, which as soon as you finish paying for them become redundant, and then you invest into the new digital kit, and then that becomes redundant even faster as things move on.
I suppose really that's part of the business planning process that anyone should go through, is looking at the technology. If you're a technology business, which essentially you guys are, it may not be IT or mechanical engineering or whatever, but as soon as you've got the stuff, as you say, you pay for it, it's then technically starting to come out of date, so you're going to need to dip in and reinvest. Do you think that's the sort of thing that you see your business kind of a process, a cycle that you keep repeating, is it?
Absolutely. We allow our equipment to run for 3 years, and that has to pay for itself and have made profit within that time. And not only profit, but earned enough money so that we can then reinvest in the next generation of equipment. There are people with, like in any business, there are people out there doing work extremely cheaply. And where they come unstuck is when that equipment wears out or becomes redundant through quality because of the move on and with the digital gear. They can't afford then to reinvest. And what they think is a long-term piece of kit actually isn't.
Do you find that, sticking with the local economy, do you find that members of ISBAR that you come into contact with, do you tend to find a lot of the questions they have, sort of a barometer of uncertainty? Do you find a lot of people are in a very similar boat in the local economy, that people are questioning over how they can get finance? Is it? I suppose where I'm going with this, do you tend to see the same sorts of questions cropping up from within the membership of ISBAR?
Yeah, one of the main questions that I get asked, and indeed I ask myself, is how's business? That's not something you used to ask a few years ago. And people will say, yeah, it's patchy, or it's good now, or it's poor at the moment, but nobody is consistent. It's so inconsistent that somebody can be busy for 2 months and then have nothing for a month or 2 months, or a lesser amount of work. Obviously there are niche markets in certain areas that are still buoyant, or have now become buoyant. But I think the majority of people are feeling worried that there is no consistency yet, and it's been around 3 years really, hasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Where there's been no consistency in the business whatsoever.
I mean, we see this with my recruitment business. I mean, a lot of the work we do internationally, we're consistently busier internationally than we are in the locality in London. Dubai and sort of Singapore and stuff like that are much busier markets than what the UK is, and it's within the same client base essentially. So, what would you say separates the Suffolk economy? Is there anything being a local lad and stuff, is there anything you find that the Suffolk economy has different to elsewhere? Because your business doesn't just deal locally, you've got clients all over the place. Any traits that you see seem to reoccur with Suffolk, or Ipswich, or, for example, Felixstowe?
Well, we deal with clients in London and indeed Abu Dhabi and around the country in the larger towns and cities. What we tend to find with Suffolk is that a Suffolk client is the most loyal client that you'll ever get, for some reason. I mean, if I try and approach a prospective new client in Ipswich or Suffolk who has a supplier, it's extremely difficult to win any business because they are loyal to that supplier. Yeah. Well, that's fine, because at some point, hopefully they'll remember me and come along. But equally, my clients in this area are loyal to me.
I think that, I completely agree with you on that. It may take a little while before you get the business, because people want to look at everything, and they want to feel comfortable with you, rather than just handing over the money. There's that relationship within the local economy. So I completely agree with you on that. But loyalty is a very big thing here.
Yeah.
And with the what advice would you give anyone that's in education now that's sitting here thinking, well, I want to go into photography, or I want to go into anything like that? Someone that's in education or college or something like that, or even school. What advice would you give them, to be able to make the move into that sort of sector?
Into our sector, definitely as a photographer, you'd be taught photography at university or at college or wherever you are. But I would advise that you learn business as well, because I reckon 90 to 95% of the photographers in the UK are self-employed. There aren't jobs, there's press jobs, but as we've seen with our own local paper over the last 3 years, they've shed so many photographers now that these guys are all out there looking for work themselves. So I would definitely learn business. I've learned it the hard way. I was a photographer because that's what I love, but I had to learn business because that was the only way to carry it out.
That's a huge thing that I've done with training, that I've done with some other business owners, is when you talk to them, they may be, a very good, motor mechanic, or, a very good florist, but when you run a business, you've got to run a business equally with what you do in your trade or profession.
Yeah.
And I think, quite often people can go into it, think, well, I can do that, I'm doing all this chargeable work for my employer. They then leave to go and set their own business up, and then suddenly you're the butcher, baker, candlestick maker. You've got to make the tea. You've got to sort the invoices out. You've got to do the credit control, do the sales, do the marketing. If your IT computer, your computer dies, you've got to fix that.
That's right.
There's so many other things, and they, as well as doing all that, you've still got to do the chargeable work, which is what you do as your day job. Sort of staff-wise, how big's your company? Sort of, you got sort of staff and employees. Sort of?
Yeah, we have 3 full-time employees, and we have 1 freelance designer who will come in when some of the stuff we do needs designing for the exhibition stands, and clients won't want to perhaps use an agency for that, or it's just a quick little job. So we have her come in for that. So yeah, we've got 3. Then there's myself, and then my wife, who does the back office work.
Photography itself, I know very little about it as an industry. You kind of get the impression there are quite a few different areas of it. What sort of, what area of photography is it that you like most?
I like studio commercial work the most. I mean, there's press work, which I'm not so good at. I'm not so good at getting in people's faces, and maybe at difficult times when they really don't want you there. That's not for me. Weddings and the social photography, I found that I wasn't patient enough with the people for that, so I decided that was best all round, that I didn't carry on with that. So products in the studio don't answer you back, they'll go where you put them. I can fiddle around with the lights and do shots as I want them to be, and create an image for my client that will sell or enhance that product for them. So,
going back to ransom, say for argument's sake, lawnmowers and stuff like that, you would do a photo shoot on latest technology that's come out in that, and then they would incorporate that into their marketing.
That's right.
For websites and press release and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. In sort of coming back to the ISBAR sort of side of things, how does someone join ISBAR? If a business wants to join the organisation, how do they get in touch? How do they do it?
Well, we've got this great new website coming along now. It's being developed still. It's an organic thing that's never still, but you can join dead easily on the site. Go to Google ISBAR, ISSBA, and you'll find the site. And there's a button on there where you can just join. Just press that, fill in your details.
So there's an existing ISBAR website now, but there's another one that's being, kind of phase 2 that's being developed at the moment.
Yeah, it's being developed at the moment. We've got videos on there now, and we're looking at putting up various boards and bulletins where people can put their own things on there that they want to do and want to sell, perhaps,
or sponsorships,
all sorts of things, and all the details are there of all the events that we hold.
In terms of membership-wise, as an organisation, how big roughly would you say ISBAR is?
I think the last count was 298.
Okay, right. So and that's individual businesses round the locality.
Yeah, individual businesses, mostly small, and 1 or 2 larger organisations are members because they see the benefit of being able to approach small businesses for sales. That's what we're all doing it for. Let's face it. in a kind of clean environment, really, where they can just approach them because they are members together.
There are other networking, sort of business networking organisations that have quite a number of rules to them, i.e. you've got to be there every, once a fortnight, you're only allowed to miss sort of, 3 and 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Does ISBAR kind of, is there a kind of, a Bible rulebook code or whatever that members have to stick to, that you're not allowed to miss certain events or you must attend others, or is it quite relaxed?
That's really relaxed. We don't ask for any of that. We attempt to put on events and things that we think members want to come to. If they're themed, then a member can choose this, that's for me, that's not for me. But again, I go back to our AGM, and I really would love for more members to come to that and say what it is that they want us to put on for them, because that's really the only way that we'll know that we're being current for members, is if they give us the feedback on what they're looking for.
I suppose in a way, if you look at it, you run your own, we both run our own businesses.
Yeah.
If you've got a client that's not satisfied, unhappy, questioning something you've done, they tend to let you know.
Exactly.
Roger, that was good, but next time could we do this? But I suppose really when you're in a members organisation like that, I should imagine things like Federation of Small Businesses and stuff like that probably also find it would be nice for there to be more engagement from the membership so you can then do your job better. Because without feedback, it's very hard to do.
Well, like in business, you're probably the same as me. We encourage it because otherwise, the last thing you want is for a client not to say anything but go somewhere else. And if you don't know that you've tailored what you're doing for them in the way they want it, if they don't tell you, you can't know. Everything's a feedback.
Yeah, you want the good feedback, but ironically, just as important as the not so good feedback. Yeah. With what sort of plans are there afoot for ISBAR? What's the future for ISBAR? Sort of anything in the pipeline at all, aside from the website that you mentioned?
Well, we've got a group of the committee who, at the moment, are getting together to come up with some ideas for recruitment. We want to get more members. Then if we get more members, we get more ideas and we can do more things. It's really, we're just trying to find out what it is and where we can place ourselves in the modern day. And I think it is a little transitional for us at the moment. Traditionally, businesses came and stayed, and now they don't. And perhaps businesses aren't around as long, sadly, occasionally, so we're losing members that way, but we're gaining new members as new businesses start up. But it's promoting ourselves, it's getting to people to make them aware that we exist, possibly. So we're trying all that at the moment.
With is there kind of one thing that you've specifically seen in your time in ISBAR that stood out as the shining example, or perhaps something that you personally would like to see implemented? What is it for you that made you take the chairman role at ISBAR? What feeling do you get out of it?
I like the mutual support. I like the fact that as a member, if I've got an issue or a problem that I've not quite understood, or I don't know why that's happened, or if I feel like at the moment business is patchy, if I can speak to another member and say, is this the same for you, or did you have this problem or that problem, how did you overcome it? And it's quite nice that because we're all members, we're sort of happy we've got that in common, but you're happy to talk to one another about it. And I think that's what I like about ISBAR. I've always liked about it.
So for argument's sake, if you've got an accountant, obviously, if you've got questioning something that an accountant, not suggesting your accountant's doing it wrong, but so if you were to hear something that you weren't sure about, you could go for off the record second opinion, or if you were going to invest in some new photography kit, there may be other photographers that you would get to know through ISBAR. Is that?
It's that as well, but it's more the point that as a small business owner, it can be a lonely place. It's you, and you might have 2 or 3 staff, you might have more staff, but essentially it's you. And like you said earlier, you're the butcher, baker, candlestick maker. So sometimes it can be a little depressing if things aren't quite going the way that you want them to go. So who else can you ask, and who's had that experience before, but another small business owner? So as a collective, and hopefully you get some trust because you've all joined ISBAR, that you can get some feedback. Oh yes, I had that and I did this, and it's just nice to have that kind of comfort feeling, really.
And one of the things I've decided I want to do with the show is chuck a bit of a curveball question at you, which obviously you don't know about.
No.
So, what's been the best moment commercially that's happened to you? You know, what's been the moment, either in your job, in his bar, whatever, that something work related for the viewers that you'd sit there and think, actually, yeah, I love my job. This is why I do it.
Oh, that's easy. Okay, I have a client that produces speakers, and they're not the cheapest speaker, and they use the old rock and roll stars to promote their product.
To the actual stars?
The actual stars. So we photographed Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath, the guitarist from that. But Jeff Beck is my all-time guitar hero, and it was actually just 6 months ago, we photographed him at the magazine Classic Rock, have their award ceremony at the Roundhouse. So we were there, and I photographed him, and I got to meet him and Joss Stone in the dressing room afterwards.
Oh, I've seen a picture of
you've seen it? Yeah, it's really cool. But not only that, the first album I ever bought as an art student back in the day was a Jeff Beck album, which consisted of Jeff Beck, Rod Stewart, Ronnie Wood, and John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. I only have to get Rod Stewart now to sign it, and then that's going in a frame, and that's going on my wall.
Did I hear a rumour that you'd once done something with Guns N' Roses?
Yeah, Slash, photograph Slash.
Yeah, okay.
And we hopefully, at the moment, Slash has his own band, and the lead singer from that, a guy called Miles Kennedy, from another band called Alter Bridge, has just agreed to sponsor my client's product.
Really?
Yeah, and I photographed this guy live, so I'm going to use that for the first ad, and then we hope when he's back in the UK from the States that we can get together and get him some shots with him with the products.
Well, I was a big Guns N' Roses fan.
Yeah,
I grew up in that time.
Yeah, I photographed Slash, and it was his birthday. I won't say what was on the cake.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, once again, thank you very much for coming in. It's been it's been a pleasure to have you, and I'm sure we'll have you back at some point as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for tuning in. Roger Barcham, the chairman of his bar, but also what is your business called?
BMS Imaging Limited.
There you go, from BMS Imaging. Thank you very much. Goodbye.